and welcome back to the AI Marketers Playbook, where we cover actionable frameworks to help you leverage AI and marketing strategies in your business. I'm Audrey Chia, your host, and I am excited to welcome back a good friend of mine, MJ Jaindl. Now, he is now the general manager at Stanley and a awesome LinkedIn content creator with over 61K followers. MJ has been deeply hands-on with AI in his content creation process, and he openly shares that almost 70% of his LinkedIn content is written with AI with the human touch. It's also cool that MJ talks about using voice, authenticity, and building a personal brand in an AI-generated era. MJ, I'm super excited to have you on the show. Welcome back!
Thank you so much. I'm so glad to be here, Audrey. Thank you for having me.
Awesome. So, for listeners who don't know you, how did your LinkedIn journey get started and what got you into the Stanley team?
Thanks for asking. So my LinkedIn journey started about 2 years ago. I was invisible online. I wanted to start to build a personal brand for myself, and so that started in late 2023, early 2024. I started posting online, and I just made one commitment to myself. That was it, that I would post every day for an entire year, every weekday. I would skip the weekends. So that's one promise I made to myself to keep going. And for about the first 6 months, it was a really rough journey. And I don't know if you've had the same experience, but when I first started posting, I didn't really know what to post. I was kind of shooting in the dark for what might work, what won't work. I didn't really know what I should be posting. I didn't know how personal I should get, or like, how kind of like more of the business side style post I should get. So it was really confusing. And basically, what happened was over the course of 6 months, I started just posting a lot of bombs. So it was like posting into the void for a really long time. Eventually, I got the hang of it just because I had this commitment that I was going to post every day. And then after a while, I started to like build and grow and gain some traction. And so in that first year, I think I grew to somewhere around 15,000 followers. And then the next year, I grew over like 47,000 followers. So once you start to build a little momentum, it will compound if you kind of understand how the algorithm works and what you should be posting, kind of find your voice.
Wow, super cool. And then, how did Stanley come into the picture? So, from what I know, Stanley is an AI LinkedIn tool that's really helping people create posts without that content block, right? Tell us more about it and how did you join the team?
Yeah, I'll talk about Stanley in a second. And the way that I found the team was actually through LinkedIn. So it was posting. I started getting really obsessed with
Wow.
personal brand, the LinkedIn algorithm, social selling, employee generated content. These are the types of topics that I was posting about on LinkedIn. And these are the mission of Stanley and Stan. And so Stanley was born out of the parent company Stan, and Stan's main mission is to help entrepreneurs and creators make money online. So Stan's store is a place where creators can sell digital products, they can sell one-on-one coaching calls. It's a one-stop shop, link in bio on your Instagram, TikTok, LinkedIn, wherever, where you can sell digital products and make money online, and just become self-sovereign, run your own business. And so one of the main problems with that is you actually have to create an audience if you're going to attract attention in order to build your own business, whether that's clients or selling digital products or whatever. So Stanley was born out of that. And what Stanley does is it's a content coach powered by AI that helps you. It does three things primarily really well. The first is analyze. So that's going through all of the content that you created, your profile, looking at everything from your headline to your about section to posts that you've created, really getting to understand who you are. The second is making recommendations. So based on all of that analysis, it can make recommendations, kind of getting a feel for what are your content pillars, what do you talk about that might work on LinkedIn, and using all of the knowledge that it knows about LinkedIn posts, performance, what works, and then starting to marry that with your content. It'll make recommendations. And then the last piece is content creation. And so Stanley will actually create content for you, and it'll do it in your voice, which is the part of Stanley that's truly unique We integrate directly with LinkedIn. We are pulling all of your posts out of LinkedIn, and we are understanding how you talk, how you speak, even like, are you using uppercase, lowercase, however you communicate online. And Stanley does an incredible job, the best in the market, of kind of matching that style. So what you're getting is content that doesn't feel like it's written like AI. You're getting content that feels like it's written by a coach. And so
Wow.
that's what we've accomplished with Stanley, and we're truly proud of like the quality of the outputs. And it's used by
Wow.
some of the top creators on LinkedIn just to save time. You know, they're saving
Yeah.
time because it understands them so well, um, versus like a ChatGPT or a Claude, which doesn't really understand LinkedIn, doesn't have all of my post history, and can't really speak in my voice the way that I'd want it to.
Yeah, I think what I like about what you say is it understands your tone of voice, style of writing, and even maybe some of your perspectives, right? I think a lot of times if you just use an AI tool without the right prompts or without giving it the right context, oftentimes it falls flat. Whereas if you give it so much more information that it can tap on, of course the output is going to be a lot better. But I'm also curious to know, MJ, but how do you think people need to balance that AI and human aspect? So assuming that more and more people are using AI right now, how do they still, have that human touch? As with anything else, building a brand also requires an element of yourself.
Yeah, that's the main important point. And I think as we kind of move into this era of AI generated content, being able to demonstrate social proof, and proof of work, proof of results, things that you've done, is incredibly important. So gone are the days where you can just talk about, here are 5 tips of how to grow on LinkedIn without a personal experience linked to it. That just doesn't work anymore. That content
Yes.
completely bombs, like never works. And now it's that social proof. And so one of the great things about Stanley is it'll understand what you've accomplished, whether it's a new role or a big win or something that you've posted about. It'll understand kind of your personal experience and what your results are, and it will be able to weave those in. That is incredibly important. And then also speaking with emotion of how you feel about things and your unique point of view. When I post on LinkedIn and I share a strong point of view, how I experience something, how I feel about something, and then show proof of results, that's when I see my posts do really well, where they go viral, because people are interested in people, they want to follow people, and that's super important. So just going to ChatGPT or going to Claude and asking it to write a post for you will take a lot of editing before you get it
Yes.
to a place where you should be posting it online, because you kind of have to add all these personal elements to it. And what I recommend folks do is use AI tools for drafting, and then add your story to it. Add your, personal story to it, personalize it, add your POV. That's super important now, in the age where you can just create content in seconds with an LLM.
Yeah, definitely. From what I've also noticed, anything that seems like, too generic, right? If it's like a cookie cutter kind of a template and you're not adding a personal touch, anyone else can post the same piece of post, right? And it doesn't differentiate you from, the other creators out there. So you also need to think about how you want to position yourself in the crowded marketplace. And I think when you have an AI generated piece of copy, you can also weave in a bit of your positioning. So, what makes you different? What makes you unique? And this is the reason why someone is going to pick you over your competitors in the crowded marketplace. So think about that when you're using AI to create content. Now, MJ, I'm curious to know, having worked at Stanley for quite some time, I'm sure you have also analyzed a lot of data or at least seen a lot of client examples. What is working now and what isn't working on LinkedIn nowadays?
Yeah, great question. We're going to post a lot more data about this. So I'll give you some general points, and then, from Stanley, we do analyze a lot. We're going to start posting a lot more data and research reports around this. So if you're interested in the algorithm, follow Stanley. We'll be posting a lot more. In general, what I'm seeing is, personal stories with an image of yourself are working better on LinkedIn than they ever have in the past. So kind of like the selfie image with a personal story, those are getting a ton of engagement. Carousels have worked for a really long time. But over the last few months, they started to fall off a little bit. Like my carousels aren't performing as well. There seems to be like a bug within LinkedIn where if you upload a really large carousel, like the size is big, there's there's like a spinning like loading box on them, so it's hard to get reach. I think the image posts like frameworks and infographics are still crushing it. If you're posting an image, 90% of the feed is getting read and engaged with on a mobile device. So it's really important to understand that. Like that's where the engagement happens. And those visuals and those images are going to stop the scroll. So if you are going to post, image posts are working well with a personal story that's tied into something that you've done, or infographics frameworks still working really well. Continue to use those. And then one thing that I've seen lately, which is kind of interesting, is text-only posts typically don't work well. They will underperform on average, but the algorithm is a little bit crazy and unpredictable. And once in a while, I'm seeing text-only posts go really far in terms of reach. So
Yes.
I think the algorithm feels very volatile at the moment, where there's like a lot of different things kind of changing at the same time. But
Yes.
yeah, it's certainly hard to pin it down because it seems like it's changing month to month.
Yes. Also, I think it's also important to have a kind of tool, right, or a single source of truth with that's able to analyze a lot of data out there. Because sometimes you post the same piece of content multiple times, and initially it does really well, and then after that it flops,
Yep.
and you don't know why. Because technically, based on history, it should have worked. But of course, past performance doesn't equate to future returns.
Yes.
So I think LinkedIn is kind of like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. That happens. And then using that example, when you've posted something multiple times and you repurpose it and it's very similar to the original post, um, it could just be who's engaging with it that day. So one thing that's really important on LinkedIn too is commenting. People talk about commenting and how important it is. When you are commenting on another post and they're commenting back on yours, it's exposing that post to everybody else's feed. So maybe one day you just happen to have a lot of folks commenting on that particular post for whatever reason. You caught them at a good time, and that kind of sent that post into like a viral stage, and you get a lot of engagement on it. Whereas maybe you post it a month later and that doesn't happen. It just could be the day of the week. So yeah, it is. The algorithm is a little fickle.
Definitely, but that doesn't mean that you can't win. So I always say, like, the platform is always going to change, but if you pivot your strategy and you work with it, there is still a lot of opportunity out there. Let's also talk a bit about the role of personal branding. I think in the past, personal branding was something that was reserved for either an influencer, or if you're a business owner, maybe you have to put yourself out there. But I think it has changed, right? So MJ, from your perspective, who do you think needs to do personal branding nowadays?
I truly think it's everybody. And the reason is your content is now your resume. On LinkedIn, your resume used to be your resume. That just doesn't cut it anymore. You're kind of like where you went to school and your job history and your accomplishments. People are kind of like skipping over all of that. And what they can really see is what have you done last week? What have you done last month? What have you accomplished? What do the results look like? So sharing that online is super important. Creating this kind of like employee generated content, uh, building your personal brand is super, super important, especially in the AI age. I feel like it's everything. So, my recommendation is you have a lot of ideas, you've accomplished a lot of things. You should be posting about those and you should be sharing those. And I know one of the biggest barriers is just kind of fear of being seen online. It is difficult. You have to kind of like put yourself out there, risk judgment. These things are difficult. I understand that. But putting that content out there is going to make you stand out, especially today. Not everybody is posting online. I think it's really critical. The earlier you start too, the bigger audience that you can create online and the more engagement that you can get. And that stuff matters too. When someone comes to your profile and they see posts that have a ton of engagement, they see a conversation going on, you have established yourself as a thought leader, you become more valuable. You become more valuable in the marketplace. And so that's my story. That's how I landed at Stan. They saw my profile, understood what I was talking about. They could see my expertise, what I had learned, recent wins. All of that stuff really mattered. So I recommend that everybody does it. I think it's super, super important.
Yes, even for me, right, when I speak to clients, I had a few folks come to me. They are in their maybe late 40s or 50s, and they say, you know, Audrey, I want to do something else in this new phase of my life. I have had 30 over years working in this company, and I have so much experience to share, yet they don't know how to find a next role because at that age, right, sometimes finding a senior level role is hard, especially if you're applying. So in fact, you want to be putting out content to be scouted or headhunted,
Yeah.
and they don't want to be putting out content just to talk about your achievements, but really it's for a specific purpose and to unlock that new opportunity in life.
100%. And I think if you are passionate about something, you have your experience, that's valuable. Then you also have something that maybe you're passionate about or you kind of like want to move into. Both of those things make you unique. They make you like a one of one, you know? So when I joined Stanley, I had a 20-year career in building SaaS companies. I was a CRO, I led a sales and marketing team, and I had done that for years. Like I had that experience. Then I got really passionate about personal brand, writing online, design, posting visuals, that sort of thing. And so I built an audience on that. That was something I was passionate about that really didn't have a lot to do with my current role that I was working on. These two things combined made me like a unique hire for Stanley because you know, Stanley is a SaaS company. I have experience building those in the past, and then truly passionate about LinkedIn, and it's a LinkedIn tool. So there is a company out there that will kind of value both of those skills. So even more reason to start posting about not only like what you're doing today, but like what you're excited about and what you're passionate about. And I think that you can weave both of those things together in a way that makes you show up truly unique online, which is amazing.
Definitely. I wanted to circle back on something you mentioned that was interesting. You mentioned something about employee generated content, right? I do think that that is particularly interesting because I think a lot of companies now, in the past, they used to rely on maybe their founders to post, but right now they're also encouraging employees to post content. Tell us more about that.
Yeah, it's one of our values. Like we believe it at Stan and Stanley, and the entire team is. They weren't posting a lot on LinkedIn. We launched Stanley, and Stanley helped them find their voice. The same challenges that we talked about a little bit earlier, which is like fear of judgment, fear of being seen. I feel everybody has that, and Stanley helped the employees kind of find their voice, coach them on what to post about, and then we started posting. And over a 30-day period, the entire team at Stanley did 150 posts, which is pretty
Wow.
incredible. It led to us being able to grow the app to over 1.5 million in revenue, like the new app. And then we made 7 hires that were EGC led hires. So based on all of the posting that we were doing about the company, why everybody was excited about it, company culture, different things that we were working on, it created a lot of excitement externally. And we were able to hire. So instead of hiring a traditional like recruiter to go out and find and fill job roles for us, all of our employees did that for us with
Wow.
employee generated content. So it's really important. And I think if you're a large brand and you're thinking about it, it's a really great time to start. I think that's
Yes.
how people see culture today is online through people posting about it. It's not through PR and company messages. I think that kind of just goes over everybody's head these days. So
Yes.
yeah, so it's a pretty cool story. It's at Stan like 24/7 people are creating content. We kind of live and breathe it, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think also the work should speak for itself, right? So if the team is using the tool to create content that's actually bringing others in, you know it works. And I think that is the beautiful part about creating a product where there's product market fit and solving a real problem that people have. I also wanted to talk a bit about that mental barrier because I think, as you said it, mentioned it multiple times, there is a sense of fear and judgment. For many people, the barrier is so big because they might think, hey, my bosses are there, my colleagues are there. It's a professional platform. I haven't posted a LinkedIn post in 10 years. What should I do? So, to people who are facing this mental challenge, MJ, what would you tell them?
I think first start small. You don't have to make a 7-page carousel or a highly detailed infographic. You can start by just posting about your experience. And it could be as simple as a selfie post tied to something that you accomplished at work or you're proud of. That has no friction with kind of like your boss or upper management or anybody at your company. And it's a pretty simple post to create. So I'd say start small. Um, and you could even before that just do a text post. Just do a text post of what happened this week, a problem that you solved, something you're excited about, something that you love. That's where to start. Just keep it really small and then like build up over time. I think it's really important to set a goal for yourself to be consistent. There's so many times where I wanted to quit LinkedIn because it just life gets busy and creating content, if you don't make it a priority, definitely falls down the priority stack when everything is feeling chaotic. So making a promise to yourself to just commit to posting no matter what happens, no matter how much engagement you get on it, is super important too. And then just also know that people are fearful that there's others out there that are judging them and thinking about them. Most people are just thinking
Yes.
about themselves. They don't care that much about what you're posting. And I
Yes.
always tell myself that still to this day. Mostly people are thinking about themselves. They're not too worried about your content. So, you don't have to take it that seriously. And also, if you get into a good habit and you're posting all the time, you're just going to get into a rhythm of posting content. And if you do post something that like doesn't really hit or doesn't get engagement, so what? Like over time, that's just going to get like buried in a sea of content that you create if you're committed to being a creator. So those are the things I tell myself. Those are the things I would tell someone who's starting off on this content creation journey. And I think it's a good way to start. Start small.
Yeah, I love those tips, right? Creating something doesn't mean you have to go all in and then be like a full time
Yeah,
24/7 creator. I think it's really about building that habit and momentum. Even for some of my clients, I tell them like you just have to get started and most importantly, don't stop. So the mistake that I see most people make is after 1 month they get a bit, you know, not as excited as before, and they don't see results as quickly. But LinkedIn is really a long term game. It's a marathon, not a sprint. So if you're looking for short term wins, this isn't the platform to be because it takes time for people to really understand your content, know what you stand for, and eventually, when it's the right time to work together, they will reach out. It just takes a bit more time. So maybe don't look at LinkedIn as a short-term kind of solution, but look at it as a long-term investment that will pay for itself and then some. I think that perspective always helps. But I think going back to the topic of content creation and creating a schedule that is simple and easy to follow, does Stanley have tools to help creators do so? Or do you have tips, for folks who are just starting? What types of content do they create? How do they get started? If especially they are new on LinkedIn.
yeah. One thing that works really well for me, and I've seen it work well for other creators, is on LinkedIn, one of your goals should be to solve a problem for somebody. This is how you're going to get a lot of eyeballs on your content. So, a problem that you have experience with, how you solved it, what the solution is, and then how somebody else could solve it. So, educational content that solves a real problem for me are the posts that go viral most. Those are the posts that get the most engagement. So, start thinking about like in your day to day, what are some of the problems that you've been working on? Like, how did you solve them, and what does that story look like? That's a really good place to start. You start posting content like that, it will get engagement. Um, what Stanley will do, you asked if Stanley will help, for sure, 100%. It'll get to know you and then it'll suggest and make recommendations. And so every week, Stanley will be emailing you and saying, hey, here are a couple things that you might want to talk about. And that's like Stanley's taking a look at all of the posts that are doing well on LinkedIn, like what are hot topics, what is trending, all of those things, thinking about you and your content pillars and what you like to talk about. And it's going to make recommendations that will get you higher engagement and more eyeballs than you typically would. So it's going to make recommendations for you. And then what I always tell people, you should have a few content pillars that you stick to. Consistency and topic is very helpful on LinkedIn. People get to know what you're talking about and they come to your profile for that and they come to your content for that. So sticking to a few pillars versus going super broad and talking about everything is definitely a winning strategy. And over time, you can figure out what those content pillars are. You don't need to do it right away, but over time you can. And then if you want to, you can use tools like AI tools like Stanley to help you with that. So it'll help you, work through ideas that you have about your content pillars and what you like to post about and kind of your zone of genius. So, so yeah, I think it's a slow process. It happens over time. The best way to start is think about that problem, how to solve it in a very fast way, and start posting about that. And then through that, you'll learn what works, what you like posting about, what you like talking about. And I think that's a really great way to start if you're just starting out as a creator.
Yes, and I like to say maybe you can also think about what problem you want to solve and how you want to solve it. So a simple kind of positioning statement you can feel it's I help target audience solve problem through a solution, right? So if you start off with that starting point, at least you know who you're solving it for, how you're solving it, and what is the problem you're solving. Then
Absolutely.
from there, like what MJ you said, creating those content pillars, I think that can help in that process.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
Yeah, having said that, I think it will be interesting for us to take a look at Stanley itself. So, do you have, any kind of demo you can share with our audience?
Yes. Let's take a look at what Stanley can do. This will be fun. So, let me share my screen real quick. And this is Stanley. So when you come in here, what you're just seeing is a prompt window. And so Stanley knows me already. It's analyzed all my content. And when I come in here, it knows me really well. So I can start by just doing something simple and saying, analyze all of my posts for the last 30 days and tell me what's working. That is just a really simple prompt. And when I give it this, you kind of see like that first step where Stanley can always go back in time. I do like full monthly reviews, quarterly reviews, annual reviews. And you can see what Stanley's doing right now. It's going in, it's saying like, how many times did you post? 34. How many total reactions did I get? How many
Wow.
comments? You can see average comment per post, average reaction per post. And then and then he's like pulling out my top performers. So he's like, okay, well, look, this post here, you got 650, nice job, 1.3x engagement. So now I'm starting, going back to the conversation that we had around content pillars and what you should post, I'm starting to get a feel for what hits for me. Like
Mm,
what actually works for my audience, and you can kind of see them here. It's like some posts about LinkedIn growth, and then what Stanley's doing, I mean, this is a really simple prompt that I gave it, but it's going deep and it's starting to identify patterns. Here are patterns that work for you that really crush it, right? And so it'll go through and start to explain some of those patterns so that can make recommendations. And then I'll talk about underperforming posts. Okay, I announced that I, launched a newsletter and gained subscribers. That didn't work so well. I'm used to posting content about personal brand on LinkedIn. Maybe it's off topic outside the content pillars. I don't really know, but something to think about. Like that didn't really work so well. Maybe you should do less of those posts. And then what Stanley's going to do is make some recommendations, right? So there's like some recommendations here. So this is like a really simple analysis. This is just the last 30 days. It can go super
wow.
deep. So if you want to go back like 500 posts, Stanley will go super deep in your profile. So based on this, you can kind of see like what worked really well. And if you're thinking about content, you could say something like, hey, Stanley, can you make me some content recommendations based on what's really working well so I can think about those and start to create a content calendar for the next week? When you give it just like a real simple prompt like that, it'll start to make recommendations. So here's the next part. So it does this. You can come in here. It'll give you really solid recommendations on what you could post. Um, but it'll also send you these in email. So every week you're going to get an email with, here's some recommendations. You're going to get two emails. One email is going to say, here's some recommendations that works well for you. And then the other email is going to say, here's stuff that went viral last week. Like these aren't your
Wow.
posts, but it's kind of in your niche and it's related. And here's what went viral. So you should kind of think about this is what's working here's what could work for you. And Stanley puts both of those things together. So it makes it really easy for you to kind of understand what to post on LinkedIn. You can see what it's done here is it recommended a bunch of posts here. And then you start to see a structure at the bottom here, and then actually like a content calendar. Okay, so it's taken things that it knows works for me. It's created that content calendar, and you can see that at the bottom. And then based on that, you can come back and kind of say, all right, cool. Um, can you write a post in format number 2, the confession post style for me, and make it about LinkedIn hooks for kind of when I didn't know how to post LinkedIn hooks well, and then how I learned and how to improve my content, and try to use some of my stats from recent posts that I've mentioned before. So now I'm taking Stanley's recommendations and I'm just having it write up some posts for me. And sometimes what Stanley would do will like ask some questions. Okay, what was the hook mistake? Uh, I used to write hooks randomly, but now I use a structure and I include stats. So it'll ask me to get a little bit more specific. If it just thinks that I haven't given enough context for the post to be good, and it'll ask me kind of for what that aha moment is and that personal experience. Now, over time, it's building this memory of what my experience is, and it's going to use that in the future. So if I tell it I had an aha moment about writing hooks, Stanley's going to remember that, and it's going to break it out in post recommendations. So now you can kind of start to see what Stanley's doing in terms of finding my voice, creating posts that are in it, and then using my own personal story. So what it'll come and do now is it's writing the post for me, and you can kind of see that on the right hand side of the screen. And it's done everything from kind of write the hook, and this is very similar to how I write. Kind of this like parentheses underneath. I write posts like this most of the time. So it's taking my style that I already write in, and then it's using that personal story in all of my other posts to write a LinkedIn post. So it came back. And one of the cool things, I think you just saw this because it went through my recommendations. It is taking one of the posts that I wrote in the past, and it's actually using the example from a post I used in the past, and it's saying this is how many reactions I got on that post. So it kind of knows all of my stats and it's weaving those into my story. Now you have a story that's very personal to me. That's something that's like really important on LinkedIn. It talks like me. It's using my stats. It has amazing memory, and now it's written a post that does not feel like AI. Like when you can bring a post out of ChatGPT or Claude, it feels like it was written by AI right away. You can tell because this has so much authenticity to it and it has so much memory tied to it. This is something that I would feel comfortable posting kind of right out of Stanley. I might do some edits, but it's captured my voice so well. This is the core benefit of Stanley is how well it captures your voice. And so now you have a post, and if visuals are so important, we talked about that. If you want to create a visual, you can come in here and you can kind of pick from your library. So if you have some of your own photos in there, if you have infographics or whatever, you can pick a post and pick a image and attach it. But if you don't have that, you can ask it to create an image based on the post that it just wrote. So now you're getting into something that's really important on LinkedIn, which is having that visual. Posts with visuals on them are getting higher than average engagement, they're getting better reach. And what we do here is we connect Stanley to Google Nano Banana, which is the best at infographic creation. And now what you just saw is Stanley created this infographic. So it analyzed all my posts. We told it about a story that it should write about hooks. It took some of my old experience and some of the wins that I've had. It incorporated all of those into the post in my voice. And then at the end of that, it's able to create this infographic that is going to work very well on LinkedIn. And this is a great infographic, random hooks versus structured hooks, which is what we just mentioned when we were talking to it. And what you can do is you can kind of just post this right away. So you can come right here, you can click LinkedIn, and it'll take you over to LinkedIn and be all ready to post.
Wow, it's so powerful.
Yeah, it's amazing. So now like the post is here, it's completely formatted, it's ready to post. I add my image, and then I'm good to go. So what would take hours before can literally take minutes with Stanley. So it's pretty
Wow.
cool.
And I really like the chat interface. It makes it so easy to have a conversation, and it's easy to use and intuitive, right? Especially because it feels like you're using ChatGPT, but something that's so much more tailored to LinkedIn, and you don't have to relearn a new platform for this new function.
Yes, absolutely.
I'm also curious about the inspiration behind Stanley, right? For the team building it, were they creators themselves? How did they come up with this concept or idea?
Yeah, absolutely. The whole idea of Stan came from the creator, the founder who started, John, and he started posting online, TikTok and Instagram. He built an audience, and that opened up a lot of opportunities for him. So he's a creator first. He still is putting out a lot of content online, and that's kind of rippled down through the entire company. It's the DNA of the company. So now everybody at the company is a creator and is posting online, and we're building tools like this to make it easy to post online, create content, and kind of loot, and while keeping that authenticity.
And what do you think is the future of content creation, given that if people are using such tools to create content so efficiently and effectively, where does that human element come in? And how do we stand out in a place where everyone is now creating content? What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, I think you have to edit. You have to look at your post. You have to make sure that it's in your voice. We're getting very close to getting there. I don't think all the other LLMs will, but we're very close to getting there with Stanley. And you just gotta you have to make sure that as you put out more content, that your voice is true. It's how you talk, it's how you speak. You're only writing about things that you've actually done. That's super important. Whether an AI writes it or you write it, you are only posting about things that you've actually done, so you have lived experience and results there. And then you're using your lens. Like, so if A is creating a post, for me, it's really important for me to go back, look at the draft, and kind of look at it through my own lens and my point of view, and add to it. This is what I felt in that moment. This is what my experience was with the problem. I was actually really frustrated when that happens. That's what I can't really capture a lot of the time. So going back there and adding those elements, doing some edits so that it feels authentically you and that you've shared your point of view is super important. But otherwise, tools like Stanley will get you 99% of the way there.
Yeah, I think to use the tools in a smart way, that's the most important part. I always say when AI creates a piece of content, you have to, of course, fact check it and make sure that, hey, it's still relevant and authentic to yourself. Otherwise, your personality is also built around something that isn't you, and that you don't want that to be the case.
Yeah.
It's a long-term game, and you want to make sure that you can sustain, that persona you're putting up online. So of course, you have multiple sides of you, right? Like you at home, you with family, you with friends, you at work, and you on LinkedIn probably is just one aspect, but it has to be authentic so that you don't burn out in the process, and it
Yeah.
has to be authentic so that when clients eventually meet you, there is not that big gap between who you are online and who you are offline.
Yeah, that's really important. And like I recommend, start doing video, like so people can actually see you. That's another important part of it, doing stuff like this, making video, making short form, so that people can kind of get a feel for you outside of just content that's created, that's written content, right?
Yes, and taking a step back, perhaps you can share what are the three biggest lessons you have learned from creating content almost every day for the past many, many months or years?
It sounds cliche, but like the first is you really need a system to create content. It's not something that'll just happen when you're motivated. That's not how creators build big accounts. So you need to have some sort of system. I'm creating content at the same time every day, pretty much. So that's really important. One of the things that I learned is it's not just about content, which most first-time creators think that growing an audience is just about the content that you create. A lot of it has to do with the relationships that you build. So commenting, being in your comment section and starting a conversation there, that is actually like a really important element of growing your account online. So just showing up, if someone is spending the time to comment on your post, do your best to reply to as many as possible, start that conversation. So that would be like, number two. And then I think three is you really have to kind of be a student of the algorithm and platform that you're on. So I'd say start with one platform, Don't go crazy in the beginning and get on X and Instagram and TikTok and LinkedIn and Substack and everything at the same time. Pick one platform that you really like that resonates with you and really stick to that for like 6 to 9 months, or more until you feel like you really have the hang of it before you start expanding out. And I think if you do those three things, you have a really good shot at staying consistent, not burning out, and building a great audience.
I love those tips. So if you're listening, remember what MJ said also, start small. Don't go in and say, I'm going to do all 10 things at once. Just, start a very small but consistent habit and eventually it'll become a part of your life. Thank you, MJ, for being on the show. Now, where can our listeners find you and who should check out Stanley?
Absolutely. You can find me on LinkedIn. I'm also on Substack, but find me on LinkedIn. I'm posting there every day. I'm talking about personal brand, LinkedIn growth, content creation. So come check me out there. And for Stanley, really anybody. So, I highly recommend founders that are building companies, CEOs who want to build a brand and use that to attract an audience, employees who are thinking about what their next move is and they're trying to build their career, and just really anybody that's on LinkedIn should take a look at Stanley, give it a shot. If you want to create content, like we just showed you in the demo today, it's going to help coach you through content creation, what your pillars are, getting over the fear of creating content. It'll coach you through all of those things. It'll understand your voice and it'll help you create posts that actually work on LinkedIn. So I truly recommend anybody that's on LinkedIn that wants to create content, go check out Stanley.
Now you've heard it from the man, you gotta check it out yourself. Awesome. Thank you again for sharing your insights, MJ, and thank you folks for tuning in. Don't forget to hit the bell for more actionable AI and marketing insights. We'll see you next week.